In this video, we will be focusing on primitive arrays, arrays of primitive types, for example, integer array or boolean array. So again, please go to the theory lecture first before jumping on to this one because it will be a hands-on small demo. So how do we create an integer array or any type of array in Java? So we do this by we write the type, then square bracket, the name of the variable. That's how we declare any type of array in Java. So because we will be focusing on primitive arrays only, so let's start with the integer array, for example, the most common type of array. How do we create an integer array? So we do this by int square brackets and let's name it a1. In Java, we define the size. So let's say it is the size is 2. So it is an integer array with size 2. And because the size is 2 and index starts from 0, so the supported indexes are 0 and 1. So we can say, for example, a1.0 and a1.1, but not a1, 2, because 2 doesn't exist. The size is 2, 0 and 1, and we are trying to access an index that doesn't exist. So we'll see what happens if we try to do that, but try to understand that the size is fixed and the index starts from 0. This is an integer array. We have just initialized the array object itself, but not the individual locations. But if we try to access the individual location, let's see what happens. So if we try to print it, the first location, the first location is always 0. So if we try to access the first location, which is index 0, then we see the output is 0. We have just initialized the array object, not the individual locations, but because this is an integer array and we know that the variables have some default value. In this case, integer, this is an integer and integer has a default value 0. That's why we see the output 0. We can change the individual values. So for example, if the first location is 0, but the second index or the second location, we want it to be, for example, 4. So how do we do that? We access the array and the index 1. That means the second location because this is a 0 based. So we say that set its value to 4. Now if we print the array 0th location, I mean the first location and the second location, then we see the correct output. The first location is 0 because that is the default value and the second location is 4 as we set here. Now what happens if we try to access an index that's not there or that's not valid? So let's say 3. The size is 2, the supported indexes in this case are 0 and 1 only, but let's say we give it some other value 3. We see there is an exception. It says that index 3 out of bounds for length 2. So that's what happens when we try to access an index that is not there in the array because arrays are initialized with a fixed size. So make sure that you always access a valid index, otherwise we'll get an exception. So that is one way to create the array. What's another way? There is another way in Java to create the same array. So let's say we have integer array name e2 and we can just declare and initialize on the same line with the given values. So in this case, we are saying that create an integer array and not only declare it, but initialize it with two values, 3 and 4. That means the size is fixed. The size is again 2 and the supported indexes are 0 and 1. So this is also a valid syntax. And we can again print the values u a to 0 and a to 1. Let's add a one more value so that at least the size is different. In this case, so we can say a2 index 2. And if we run the program, we see all three values properly initialized, 3, 4, and 5. So that's another way to declare and initialize an array in Java. We can break it, for example, we can just say create an array, but on the next line or somewhere down in the program, we can say that a3 equals to new integer array, let's say with size 5. That is also a valid syntax. There is one more. So this time let's take an example of another type, maybe boolean. So we say we have to create a boolean array p1, and we do this like new boolean square brackets, and we can simply give the values here. So we say true, false, true. So this is the one way. We give the size on the right hand side. Another way is to simply assign the values, give the values on the right hand side. Third way is to break the declaration, just declare the variable and then declare the array with size. And the last way is to in the right hand side, on the right hand side, give the square bracket and provide the values directly. But we, in this case, we cannot mention a size here. If we do that, it's a compile time error. Java compiler will automatically understand that size needs to be 3. So it will initialize a Boolean array with size 3. In this case, if we print the values, let's say first index, that is the second location, then we should see the value false 0, 1. So this is 0, index 1, index 2, and we are trying to print index 1. So we see the value false. So there are many things that we can do with arrays in Java. For now, we are just focusing on the basics. So there is just one more thing. Uh, the, the most common method of arrays is to get the size of the array. So how do we do that? We can find out if let's say we don't know the size of this array, we can simply call the method or property, in this case b1.length, and if we run the program, we see the size 3 because the size is 3. Now this is very useful in future when we will learn loops and iterations. Then this is going to be a handy property, because in order to iterate arrays many times, we have to get the size of the array. So this is the most common property of array. In the next lecture, we'll see how to use object arrays. For now, that's it.